The first service that one owes to others in a fellowship consists in listening to them. Just as love to God begins with listening to His Word, so the beginning of love for the brethren is learning to listen to them. It is God's love for us that He not only gives us His Word, but also lends us His ear. That's a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and it's about listening, and so coincidental because that's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. My name is Carla Moore. I'm here with my friend Kathy Pollard, and we are just a couple of friends that get together and we chat for a while, and then we usually have a topic that we talk about that it hopefully is of interest to other people besides us. I think it is. But we just like to talk about things related to the Bible, to Christianity, to the home, to friendship, lots of different things that we like to talk about. And we love to have our friends join in from afar. And we have a community of women on Facebook and on Instagram. We'd love for you to join us over there. But we are just a couple of friends just looking to glorify God and hopefully point others to Him. And we pray that that's what we do every week, is to show God in the things that we say and do. So how are you doing today? What's going on over there?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this topic on listening. And, a lot of times when we pick a topic, it's something that we need. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Here recently, it seems like my toes are a little bit bruised by the time we're done, but I always look forward to them because I know it's going to be good conversation. And this one is no different. So you picked this topic. I thought it was excellent. I know it's going to be a good conversation. I'm doing great. We are enjoying fall, family, faith, friends.
Fun.
Fun? Food? Good. Neil would be so impressed.
Yeah, all that alliteration.
Yes, he is
The
the
wife
king
of a
of
preacher.
alliteration. I do have an important question for you.
Okay, great. Uh-oh.
I do have some. I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay?
Ooh,
It's very serious, so take it
okay.
seriously. Ready?
I don't know.
You ready? You don't look serious.
I
That's
can't.
that
Now
is
that you
not
told me to be serious, I
that
can't.
is that's not your
Okay.
serious face. All right. Take two. All right. How do you pronounce the word DATA?
Data.
Okay, me too. Some people say data.
They're wrong.
Yes. Caramel.
Caramel. It's not
No,
caramel.
it is
Caramel.
caramel. It even looks
Caramel.
like caramel.
Let's
Where,
Google
what do
it.
you do with that second A?
I'm gonna Google it.
What do you do with that second A?
It's all mixed in there, like caramel itself.
Pajamas.
Say it again.
Pajamas.
Pajamas.
So do I. Some people say pajamas. How about AUNT?
Ant.
Me too. A lot of people say aunt.
Yeah.
ROUTE.
Root.
So I grew up saying route, but now I say route.
It depends, because like if it's an address, Route 2, Box 302 used to be our address, and I would say route.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm talking about taking a route,
Mm-hmm.
I say route.
Okay. How about ROOF?
Roof. Roof.
Which one
Roof.
is
Get up on the roof. So I say roof.
roof? Okay. My grandpa said roof, but I always said roof.
Roof.
PECAN.
Pecan.
That's the right way. Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's one. COUPON.
Coupon.
Which one?
Coupon.
Coupon.
Coupon, not
See, that's how
coupon.
I grew up
Coupon.
saying it, but somewhere along the way I switched to coupon. I don't know why. All
Coupon.
right.
Coupon.
CRAYON.
Crayon.
Crayon. That's how I say it too. Some people say crayons or crowns.
Crayons.
All right, just a couple more. GENRE.
Genre.
That's how I say it too. And then LAWYER.
Lawyer. Wait,
Lawyer?
say it again.
LAWY.
Lawyer, as opposed to what?
Lawyer.
Lawyer.
Mhm.
Lawyer.
I say
Lawyer.
lawyer, but some people say lawyer.
Lawyer is how it comes out when I say it. Lawyer.
Lawyer.
Lawyer. Depends on where you're from.
That's right. There's probably more out there, but that's all I could think of.
Caramel.
What was that? It said caramel.
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 Okay, so you're right.
Oh, did you repeat that? What was that? Got a little staticky there. I didn't hear you. Eh?
Caramel.
Caramel. Caramel. Caramel. Caramel
Okay.
corn. How do you say caramel corn? Do you say caramel corn?
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
Caramel corn? Doesn't come
Caramel
out right.
corn.
Caramel corn.
Caramel corn.
Yeah.
Well,
Caramel.
listen up.
All right. I guess I better listen up on that one. Well, so I went to the mall at
Hmm.
Barton Creek Mall in Austin. And
Was it an emergency?
what do you mean?
Malls just aren't what they used to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of not an emergency, but it was one of those times I just wanted to go one place. I didn't want to like get out
Hmm.
and drive somewhere else and get out and, and so I thought, well, maybe, and then it was a bus. I didn't find what I needed, but I haven't been to
Oh.
that mall in, I bet it's been 5 years. And we used to go all the time. It was kind of a thing.
Hmm.
We'd take the boys and we'd go eat at Chick-fil-A at the mall, and then
Hmm.
they'd go look at Finish Line at shoes. We didn't buy anything, but they'd look at them. And we'd go to J.C. Penney's or Dillard's or whatever, just
Yeah.
the old days.
Yeah.
So I went. I was looking for a couple things, and it was dead. First of all, there was hardly anybody in there. A lot of the stores have closed. So things are different now. I guess, people order online
Hmm.
for one thing. And it seems like outdoor malls are more of a thing now than indoor malls, which doesn't make a lot of sense because you've got the weather to contend with, which is,
Hmm.
many months of the year it's hot here. But I also noticed that, you know how they used to, like, you'd walk outside of one of the main anchor stores and there'd be a big directory there.
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Have like upper floor
Yeah.
and the lower floor.
Yeah.
You don't have that anymore. You have to scan the QR code and then it doesn't even take you to the information you need. You have to download their app.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that because then you have to give an email address and then you start getting
Mhm.
emails and you don't want. And so I was just kind of unimpressed with my trip to the mall yesterday.
Well, I wonder if that's because stores don't have the stability they used to. They come and go so quickly. It seems like a new
Yeah,
store comes in the mall, it doesn't last very long, and
maybe so.
maybe I don't know.
But even
Hmm.
so Macy's, John gave me a gift card to Macy's. I probably had it in my wallet for a couple of years because
Hmm.
it's at the mall and I don't tend to go over there. It's kind of hard.
Hmm.
It's not the easiest place to get to. And then the one at Southwest Plaza in Denver closed. The Macy's in that mall closed. So I thought I'm going to run in there and use this gift card. And it was completely different. Well, here it used to be Foley's. Did y'all ever have a Foley's? It started
I don't
out as
think so.
Josky's and then it was Foley's and then it was
Hmm.
Macy's.
Oh.
And so Macy's, I know from, like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade and all that,
Hmm.
but it was like it was just almost empty in there. And it used to just
Hmm.
be packed with things and people, and it's just so different. And so I was kind of surprised. The lower floor had all the jewelry and the shoes and the clothes and things. And then you go upstairs and they call it Macy's upstairs. And it was like clearance stuff, almost the entire floor upstairs. So it was just so strange.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
know.
go to the mall very much anymore. I go when Bath and Body Works has their
Hmm.
semi-annual sale.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of frog today. And their soaps, their hand soaps go on
Hmm.
sale. I stock up on those. And when we had AT&T, we used to go because the AT&T store was in the mall, but we don't even have
Hmm.
AT&T anymore. So I really
Yeah.
don't ever go anymore.
Well, sometimes we would go to Southwest Plaza in Denver because we would meet at the food court with a bunch of people and
Hmm.
everybody could get what they wanted. And then
Well,
they have that
Cheesecake
big,
Factory was there also.
yeah, yeah, that too.
So,
But we would go with the students and everybody could go. It seemed like there was a Chipotle and there was a pizza place and a hamburger place. And then there's a
mhm,
big fire pit there,
mhm,
that enclosed with glass. And we would all meet in the middle, and I
mhm.
like that because everybody can do what they want.
Yeah.
But as far as Barton Creek Mall, I don't know. I wonder if I'm just curious if that's a Austin thing or if it's around
Mm.
the country.
No, I think it's around the country. I've noticed that too. It's probably
Well,
why we don't go very much anymore.
I thought maybe it was just because I was old.
Might be that also.
Thanks. Need a little confirmation there for
I'm right there with you, sister.
here. Nothing but support from you.
100%.
So what have you been doing for the last few days?
Oh, this.
Have you got anything growing in the garden still, or have y'all?
No, we have pulled everything up, and we really, we pulled up the last. I say we, Neil, went out in the rain and pulled up the last of the pepper plants because they just wouldn't stop. But I was definitely done. So he pulled up the snacking peppers and the jalapeno peppers and the poblano peppers. Finally pulled it all up, and we're done with you. So no more gardening stuff. But my sister is still bringing in tomatoes and beautiful tomatoes and things like that. So
your mom shared something about she's having trouble with her tomatoes.
She still has tomatoes, but I just, this was just one of those summers. It was not a stellar gardening year. It got hot really quickly, and we went out of town at some point. It seems like when I came back, I was already behind. Things were bolting that I never got a chance to enjoy, like cilantro and my arugula, and weeds kind of got in there. We got a bad batch of manure for the compost, and so weeds. That's another word.
Else but a bad batch. I mean, is there a good batch?
Yes, there is. And
what makes it good?
Well, not a lot of weed seed or something. It just we got it from a different place, and it acted very differently. We had tons of grass and stuff growing up in our raised beds, which we've never had before. So
the cows had been eating some grass.
It just wasn't a very enjoyable gardening season. And usually summer is my favorite season, but I've just been kind of rushing it along. Like, I'm done with it. I'm ready to be done with it and start over next spring.
I've kind of noticed that you haven't talked about it as much this year as you did last year.
Well, and plus, as I've mentioned, for some reason, nature hates me this year. I'm having allergic reactions to things. Bugs are attacking me and stinging me. And it just hasn't been very fun.
So you're done. The peppers, they were out there saying, please love me. Please take me.
Please.
And
I brought, Neil would bring them in, and I would freeze them or roast them or something. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Can you just please pull them up? Can we just be done?
That was the end of the pepper plants.
Yes.
Well, I know we'll be looking forward to it again, and we're so wishy-washy, aren't we? In about 6 months, we'll be dying to you will get your hands in the dirt again, and I'll just be dying for it to be warm.
As much as I've looked forward to being done with feeling guilty about my raised beds, it is getting harder to get up in the morning because it's dark already, and it feels darker and colder in the morning, and I'm like, well, this is what I wished for. Here it is. Here we go.
Well, and the time change seems like it's later. It used to be the first part of October when the time change would occur, and now it's the first part of November. And I don't even know who gets to decide that. I mean, I always prefer daylight towards the end of the day, just because you can go outside after supper, but that'll start a whole discussion amongst people.
Yeah.
They have very strong feelings about daylight savings time.
Among other things.
Yeah.
That should be an episode. Very strong feelings about ...
Yeah. Let's determine what's an opinion and what is not.
Oh, yeah. Some are important and some aren't.
Have you ever taken clothes to sell, like at a boot or like a women's resale place? I did that yesterday. And my niece does it quite often. She does a lot of resale things and has a big Poshmark store and all that. Well, I used to do it with the boys with their clothes. I would take them. They have a Once Upon a Child and the things that some you'd give away and some you'd keep for another one or whatever. But I took some, and I thought it was a pretty good experience. I got like $80 for a laundry basket full. But a lot of things, I just went around. I mean, they were sitting in my closet because a lot of things that I had gotten from Goodwill that I was either done with, they're nice clothes, things that I would never pay full price for. But, I took 2 laundry baskets and only sold 1. And she said, well, the rest of these are more spring, summer clothes. So you'll need to bring these back like in March when they're getting ready for spring and summer again. But I thought, well, that's kind of a nice little $80 pad in my purse.
Yeah, we used to do that with that bookstore in Denver, Trade Smart.
Never been there.
We'd take a big old box. We'd always have textbooks and all kinds of books like that, cookbooks, and really good shape.
Hmm.
And I was always amazed at the ones they would take and the ones they would reject. The ones they give back to us, I think, really? These are the ones you don't want. But, and I think there you just got store credit. You didn't actually get money.
I'm trying to remember. I even got an email. There's some kind of an online place that you can send your things to. Of course, I can't find it right off the top of my email, but you can, like, you contact them and they send you a label. And I think you have to like provide a description and they tell you which ones they want, which ones they don't, which seems like a lot of trouble. But I mean, if you've got some nice things. And they had this place where I went yesterday was up in North Austin, and they had all the designer like Louis Vuitton and stuff like that. Of course, and she was telling me when I brought it in, put my laundry baskets on the counter, and she said, it'll take this long. You can do this, you can trade. If you have, I can't remember what she called them, but in essence, the high end stuff, then we'll have to verify that it's real. I said, there's nothing like that in there. Okay.
No worries.
No worries about that. Yeah. Moving right along. But I thought that was kind of neat. I probably will do that again. I mean, sometimes you just want to give something to somebody if they want it, but sometimes you could also use a little extra money in your pocket. So
sure.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's other things you can resell too, like that. Anyway,
Good.
what else you got? Anything?
I got nothing.
I'm very talkative today.
Well, I love everybody.
All right. Well, should we just get started on our topic?
Yeah,
then?
let's do that.
Okay. I had a couple of other quotes that I thought, and that I was going to start off with this one, and then I thought better of it. But with regard to listening, I liked this one. Big egos have little ears.
Ooh.
Big egos have little ears. I thought, ouch, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so true, isn't it? It just seems like if you have an ego, you're less likely to listen. And then I liked this one as well. Wisdom is the reward for a lifetime of listening when you would have preferred to talk.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about listening and how, things that stand in the way of listening. How can you be a better listener? What does the Bible have to say about listening? And I know that we've talked about this topic in various ways here and there, but not really spent a whole episode on it. So I thought this is something that I know I need help with. And I think we all do and to a certain extent. And I probably brought this up before too, but there's a man years and years ago who he's a preacher, super sweet man. And I know he didn't intend anything by this, but I've always thought about it with regard to listening because my dad had just had knee surgery and we were visiting this congregation where this man was preacher and we were at the back, going through the line at the back of the auditorium after the sermon and he knew my dad. And so we were shaking his hand and saying, good sermon. He said, and how's your dad doing? And I said, well, he just had knee surgery. And this man said, well, good. It's just kind of trying to get us to move along. And he wasn't listening to me. He didn't hear what I said. And like I said, I never held it against him because I knew it was the end of a Sunday service and he was trying to greet visitors and people that he didn't know. But it's just always been something that kind of stuck in my head. Like, okay, sometimes you can really out yourself by the response that you give after somebody has said something to you, which, kind of makes me laugh. But I mean, we all know people like when you think of someone who doesn't listen well, what do you think of?
Well, the biggest tell to me is when they ask a question, like they're trying to sound engaged by asking a question. And you're like, I literally already answered that question. You were not paying attention.
Yeah. Yep. That is definitely one of them.
And sometimes we as spouses, catch each other if we're in conversation with another person or a couple and one of us asks a question, you can kind of tell from how the other person goes.
Yeah.
He just said that, like.
Yeah, sometimes I squeeze John's hand and try to cover for him.
Busted. You're trying to act all engaged, but all you're doing is showing you weren't listening. Yeah. I was that bad person, the illustration that you just gave. And I think I've shared that on here too, but little Kennedy Waddell was having a conversation with her and I was like, so what are you going to do today? And she said something, and I really didn't hear what she said, but I just kind of passed over it. And I said, "Well, that sounds like fun."
And it
And
was
I
a
could tell by the
funeral.
look on her face. Yeah, it was the wrong response.
Yeah.
And I found out they were going to a funeral of one of their dear friends, and
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about being guilty of not
Yeah.
listening.
Well, you learned something from that, right?
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Well, what do you think of when what are the characteristics of a good listener?
Well, eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
no devices.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of tell. I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but it just seems like there's just something about somebody's expression. You can kind of tell when they're genuinely interested of, they're just giving you attention and enjoying, savoring the moment of being together. And then when someone's just kind of perfunctory,
Mm-hmm.
putting in a conversation,
Yeah.
I want to make sure I talk to this person today or
Right.
whatever. I don't know. There's just, you can just kind of tell.
Yeah. And I know we have to be careful because there have been times that I have, gotten a little bit miffed about somebody not listening. And then you find out later that they have really had something heavy going on in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know we can't always know the background behind the situation, but there's
Mm-hmm.
some when I think of someone who's not listening, of course,
Mm-hmm.
there's a device, those things. And I know sometimes if you're waiting for your child to call after school or whatever, you have to have them on sometimes. But I just think of someone that as soon as you start, well, they'll be talking and expect
Mm-hmm.
you to listen to them. But as soon as you start talking, they pull the phone out, check it. They maybe look away or they're yawning. I mean, you can just see it on their face that they're disinterested in what you have to
Mm-hmm.
say. And I think that that's kind of an extreme. Most people are not that bad. I know some people that are pretty much like that, but
Mm-hmm.
you can just tell I don't care anything about what you're saying. I'd rather be talking myself, or I'd rather be talking to anybody but you. Is how I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just, not someone that you feel like is genuinely interested in you. And I think with who we are representing the Lord, who is always interested in us, we need to do a better
Mm-hmm.
job, I think, of listening and being engaged and hearing what people say and making people feel like they matter to us because
Mm-hmm.
if we want to be like Jesus, then we're going to have to do those things.
Well, it's probably a little bit habitual too. I mean, it's a bad habit, but I can think of, personalities of people that consistently listen and they're engaged. And I know when they ask me a question, they mean it.
Hmm.
They actually do want to know what my answer is. And then there are other people, and I don't take it personally, but there are other people that I don't really bother to answer their questions because
Hmm.
they're either going to talk over me or keep talking or just kind of go, uh-huh.
Yeah.
They don't really, and I can carry on a conversation with them without ever answering a question just
Hmm.
because they're not really interested. And like I said, I don't really take it personally. That's just kind of the nature of their personality.
Yeah.
And I think another clue is, and this is something for sure I have to work on, is when somebody brings up something later, or they'll send something, this made me think of you. And it was from sometimes I have to think back, why does that
Hmm.
make you think of me? Oh, I said that in a conversation to them,
Right.
but they remember things they bring up later. They have this good recall. And whereas sometimes I feel like I'm trying to make eye contact. I'm trying to look like I'm interested, but
Hmm.
I forget.
Yeah.
I forget details and conversations. And
Hmm.
so am I really paying attention or am I just going through the motions of looking like I'm
Yeah.
listening?
Some people, I don't think I do this very well, but if I am thinking of something else while someone's talking and yet I'm still trying to make that eye contact,
Mm-hmm.
and I know, you get to a certain point where they're looking at you like, they're giving you a strange look because obviously you're thinking about something else.
Yeah.
And you have to say, oh, I'm sorry. This is just something that's on my mind, whatever. And you know, thinking about the intent of this podcast today, I hope that it ends up being about some self-examination and
Right.
how we can be better listeners rather than, oh, so and so is just such a rotten listener. They're never paying attention. I think what we really want to do is encourage everyone to think about their own listening ability and model that for others.
Mm-hmm.
And think about moms, especially, like, what are your kids seeing and how you listen to them, how you pay attention to others and how you're interested in others, because it conveys a lot when we listen to someone and repeat something back to them or check in with them later. Anyway, we're going to talk about some different tips for listening better. But I first thought we would talk about what are some challenges. Why is it that we struggle with listening? And I think there's some really innocent ones, but I think there's some character issues too. And one of them, I think, is that our pride gets in the way, and that stinking pride, it's always involved in things that are bad, right? It's just always a problem. And as far as listening, when it comes to pride, I guess I think it's one of those, I know better than you. Why should I listen? I mean, there's probably all different kinds of reasons, but if I'm thinking about pride and when someone doesn't listen, it's because they think that the person that's speaking just doesn't really have anything useful to say, or they know better than the person that's speaking. I don't know, just different reasons why I think pride could get in the way of listening.
Mm-hmm.
And you tend to maybe finish someone's sentence if they're speaking, and I don't know if I've ever really thought about how this might be an issue with pride, but you have people that you're trying to explain something or tell something that happened to you, and they say, well, that's nothing. My mom did this. Or, they've just got one better. I think we call that a one upper. And here I am going down the road of talking about other people who aren't listening well instead of, but I guess I have to examine myself. Is there pride in my own heart when I'm not listening to someone? But, we all have done that before, where I think innocently sometimes when we think we want people to understand that we connect with them because, yeah, that's happened to me. And this is what happened when that happened to me, rather than just giving someone the time to finish talking with whatever it is they want to say. So pride is one of those things. I think distraction is a huge one for me. In fact, sometimes when we're recording and I'm trying to catch up on my notes maybe, and you're talking and I'm looking over here at my iPad, and then I look back and I'm lost. Does that ever show up on my face?
Thanks a lot. Next time I'm gonna ask you a question on the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot. Are you listening?
Do you agree, Carla?
Should I?
Why, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I thought of when you said there are barriers, is distraction.
Because there's just so many things going on in life, in the world, and when we stay so busy, I think that it's kind of natural thing that we're distracted by where we're supposed to go next. And so when we're able to just sit down and listen to somebody, I think that's so valuable. It's valuable to be able to listen.
Well, how many conversations actually happen in sound bites, though? And we consume in sound bites. Everything has to be short burst, moving fast. And, there's that word intention again. But if you want to be a good listener, you have to be intentional about it. You have to give somebody time. You have to slow down and, screech out all the distractions and intentionally pay attention to somebody. And you can't adjust the speed of their voice. I know some people put us on double speed to go through this podcast quicker, or do that with their Bible app. You can't change the speed. You can't hurry them up. You can't fill in words for them, although sometimes we do that. You just have to listen, and I think that distraction from impatience or disinterest or whatever it might be is just creeps in there, and we tune them out without realizing it.
I wonder how we can change that. Like, how can we be more intentional about, instead of it being a soundbite, making it a conversation? I mean, is it like clearing your mind somehow? Or I guess it depends on if it's something that's really important to that person. Like if they're needing to talk to you about something, maybe going into a different room. If there's a lot of things going on in the room, if you're in the auditorium at the church building, maybe we could say, why don't we go back here to the nursery and sit down? Just trying to think of different ways that we could indicate that we really want to listen and hear.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with our own interest also. Everybody has their favorites, whether we should or not. And people that we look forward to seeing, we're excited to see, we want to know all about them and how their week went, and we're tuned in. And then, it seems like there are other people that we're just going, oh, I should probably say hey to them.
Hmm.
Which one is going to get more of our focus and intention and
Yeah. Well, maybe
engagement?
looking for opportunities too, kind of like what you're saying, thinking about something that happens at the church building sometimes, how you start talking to somebody and slowly everyone filters out of the auditorium and you find yourself, you're the only two or whoever is involved in your conversation left in the auditorium. And sometimes it's good if it's a serious conversation, just say, let's just sit down for a minute. Let's talk about it. But I think you just have to pay attention to cues and see what's. I think you can tell by the expression on some people's faces that this is really serious, or if they need some attention. There's so many people out there that don't get any attention, and I think that that's some of it's distraction that keeps us from seeing those people. But we need to pay attention and see what people need and look for that.
Mm-hmm.
Another challenge that I was reading about is it's kind of along the same lines, but social media, and how we live in this Netflix world where you just go from one show to the, you just binge one show. Used to sound like an old lady, but I remember looking forward to whatever night Little House on the Prairie was on. It was on Monday nights, I think. And you couldn't watch the next one because it wasn't out yet. You had to wait until the next week. And so you had like built-in patience, I guess, because you had no choice or anticipation or something. But where we are now, you just go to the next and watch the next and watch the next. And we're kind of like what you were saying about sound bites. We're just accustomed to being in a fast pace, and we have to slow down to be a listener. I think another challenge is you just don't care. And that's, to me, a character issue, because we should care about everyone. I know sometimes we get overburdened. Maybe some people want you to listen to them all the time. I think we've probably all had somebody like that, and they monopolize your time, and it's kind of hard because you want to talk to other people. And so, there's some institution of boundaries there, I guess. But then there's two others that I thought of where when you're asking someone to listen, you have to give some grace, because these things are, it just depends on what's going on in your life. But one of them is timing. And I don't know, don't you think some people are aware of it and some people are not, that this is a good time or this is not a good time? Which one am I? I think sometimes I think I know fairly well if it's a good time, but I don't know. Maybe you need to tell me. If not publicly, you can wait until we're in private.
Well, I feel like a lot of our focus has been, congregationally, seeing people at church, seeing them in the foyer before and after worship, and but also think about in our closest relationships, whether it's a husband or a child-parent relationship, how crucial it is to understand timing. And that's something that you learn out of necessity. Maybe you don't have that all figured out when you're first married, and you learn the hard way that there's a smart time to bring this up. There's a smart time to have a lengthy conversation. There's a better time to, you kind of figure that out, and with your kids, with your husband or whatever. And we don't have that advantage so much when it's other people that we're trying to have good conversation with. And so you got to be able to, like you say, it goes back to using a little bit of common sense and cues and wisdom.
And we can also ask, is this a good time or is this a bad time? And be willing to hear the answer. But I was thinking like trying to have a serious conversation with John at noon on Sunday afternoon when the Dallas Cowboys just kicked off a game against the New York Giants, and he's not going to pay attention to me. I mean, if my leg was bleeding and if I was laying on the floor or something, he would pay attention. But, I need to give grace when I realize that it's not a good time. It's just, I'm not going to get full attention. And I've also realized the older we've grown that if I really need his attention, I need to say, John, and then wait until
Mhm.
he turns and looks at me and makes eye contact. And I can say, can I tell you about something? And then it's like, it's kind of like, okay, click, click. He clicks eyes on me, and then he clicks that I need to tell him something. Because if he's in the middle of a thought,
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
we just have to be careful. And so give some grace to people and
Yeah.
realize that somebody may be having a bad day. And do they really need to hear about your bad day when they're having a worse day? And pay attention. You just
Mhm.
don't know what's going on in people's lives. Um, when you when you listen to people and you really do care about people, I think it draws them to you. But sometimes you've got your own stuff going on, and those people need to realize it's not all about them. And I don't, it sounds like I'm saying it, in a mean way, and I don't really mean it that way, but there are some people who are conscious of that, and they realize, okay, you've got your own things going on, and I need to, can I listen to you? Do you want to talk about something now? Or, just given space. So timing is one of those things. And then just exhaustion, which is very similar, if you've had a bad day, if there's things going on in your life and you just don't have the margin, that's a buzzword, but if you don't have the margin to listen to somebody,
Mhm.
it just happens sometimes. But so I guess on this side, I'm thinking of when we're talking to other people, we need their attention to give grace when we realize that there's timing and exhaustion that might enter into it.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of things that the Bible has to say about listening, and I'm sure you would know where I'm going with James 1:19, to be quick to,
Hear,
slow to,
speak,
and slow to.
wrath.
Yeah, so put you on the spot there. And I've heard people say that this is talking about the word, that we should be quick to hear the word, slow to speak the word, although that doesn't quite make sense to me, but slow to anger with regard to instruction, that we're hearing about the word. And I don't know. I still think this is very applicable when we're talking about being, just stop talking so much and be more apt to listen.
Mhm.
Proverbs 18:2 said, and I won't put you on the spot with this one, a fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind.
Mhm.
So that's pretty stark there, to say someone's foolish if all they're wanting to do is tell you about themselves and
Yeah,
not
I
hear
had that one
about
down
you.
too. In my, what version was that?
I think it was the ESV, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
It may have been
uh,
the New American.
yeah, this one is a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only expressing his opinion.
Okay, mine may have been
Yeah.
New American.
Yeah. Yeah,
Proverbs. Go ahead.
you had shared the quotes at the beginning. This is
Hmm.
what happens when we're just not sharing things ahead of
Hmm.
time, which I love, but it makes me laugh because you had said the one about wisdom is the reward you get for listening. I had that one down. I knew I had shared quotes through the years on listening, and so I'd gone through and kind of looked for them, and I had
Hmm.
that one. And to listen well is as powerful a means of communication and influence as to talk well.
Mm.
But my favorite one is the one that is a good listener not only has a lot of friends, but after a while he learns something.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, only good comes from listening,
Yeah.
more than you speak.
Yeah. And I want to
But-
backtrack just a little bit before you get
okay.
into more of the word, because you were talking about barriers. And one that popped into my head was that just a self absorbed, being so self absorbed. And I know that kind of comes up in some of those other things, disinterest, pride, distraction, or
Mhm.
whatever. But that song that was out not too long, well, whenever it came out, I don't know, but it was I like talking about you
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah,
but
that's been about 20 years.
occasionally, yeah, but occasionally I want to talk about me.
Me. Yeah.
And if we're in a conversation and they're asking about us and we're talking about us and we're all engaged and we're all interested, and then when it switches, so what about you? We just kind of drift off, zone
Mhm.
out, and because we're too self-absorbed to give them the same
Right.
interest, energy, effort, care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's probably not just me, but there's people that they just never ask you about you. They're only interested in asking or telling you about themselves and what they've been
Mhm.
doing and where they've been. And sometimes I think, is that me? Like, do I do
Mhm.
that? I hope not. I don't think so. But because I notice that when people They don't even ask you. So what's been going on with you lately?
Mhm.
And that
Well,
is
and I know
self-absorption.
people that are the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like they may be the ones going through something, and you go up and you're trying to find out how they're doing, and they just turn it around. You
Mhm.
know, oh, I saw about your grandchildren, or oh, I saw how you, or I loved that you, or wasn't it,
Yeah.
they just, and you walk away from that going, well, I feel like I talked about me the whole time, but I didn't
Mhm.
mean to, but they're
Yeah.
just naturally interested in other people,
Mhm.
even when they're the ones going through stuff.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
Okay. So we
Yeah,
backtracked
carry
enough.
on. Carry
Okay.
on.
Another scripture is Proverbs 18:13.
Ah, I had that one too.
Okay, read it.
Oh, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does your mind go with that one?
Just that having an opinion, being quick to jump in and say things and not even listening, not listening to the person's feelings or the
Mhm.
actual account or whatever it might be. And so many, honestly, so many of my scenarios when I read this verse go to marriage,
Yeah.
because how many times in an argument, and I'm more interested in getting my point across or defending my actions or whatever it might be, instead of actually listening to his perspective, his feelings, his
Mhm.
heart, and
Mhm.
and this is giving an answer before one hears is a folly and a shame.
Yeah, and that word folly, foolish.
Mhm.
I mean, I think when I don't guess my thought immediately turns to marriage with that one. I think of um, social media, or
Mhm. Gossip or
it's just telling me my default speaker is changing. Sorry, whatever that means. Um, but it's foolish. I mean, you just look like a fool when you jump in and you obviously do not know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And who wants to look like a fool? Who wants to be a fool? And it's embarrassing when you look back on it. And how do you deal with that then? How do you handle being foolish? Do you go apologize? There's that can lead down different paths.
Mm.
Um, then there's Psalm 116, verses 1 and 2. I love this one. It says, I
Ah.
love the Lord. Do you want to read that one, T?
No, no, go ahead. I read the last one.
We could take turns and each do a phrase. I love
Oh
the
man.
Lord because he has heard my voice and my pleas for mercy, because he inclined his ear to me. Therefore, I will call on him as long as I live.
Hmm.
And I love that imagery of inclining his ear to us. And when you look at the definition, incline, I think of it uphill, but it's, he bends down to listen to us. And if the God of the universe is interested in what you have to say, shouldn't we be interested in what other of his
Yeah.
creation have to say?
I love that verse, and I came up with it because I was thinking about this idea of listening as being one of the surest ways to deepen a relationship.
Mm,
You want to deepen your friendships, you want to deepen your relationship with your children or your spouse or your sibling, whoever, church, whoever it is. Listen, be a good
yeah.
listener. Put all your energy there. And I was thinking that's what we appreciate about God. And we love him because he has promised he's always there. He's always listening. There were a lot of scriptures actually that had to do with his ear
Hmm.
hearing us, whether it's cries or questions or whatever it might be. And so the Psalm 116, verse 1, I love the Lord because he has heard my voice.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good
I
one.
love that. That's such a great point. If you want to deepen your relationship,
Hmm.
listen, because we're all tempted to talk about ourselves because
Yeah.
we are comfortable with ourselves. We know about ourselves, or maybe we're trying to impress. But if you're just talking about yourself, you're not learning anything. You're
Mm.
not learning anything about anybody else except yourself. And it's not learning because you already know it about yourself. But if you want to, I love what you said. If you want to deepen your relationship, you have to ask questions, you have to listen, you have to be interested. And who doesn't want that? I think we just shoot
Mhm.
ourselves in the foot when what we really want is to deepen a relationship. And we think we're doing that by sharing our heart. But what we're doing is probably alienating a lot of people, because all we're doing is sharing our heart and not listening to the heart of someone else.
Years ago, we sat in on a seminar at Bear Valley that was on conflict resolution.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget how much listening plays a part in conflict resolution. And you think about that, like I just mentioned, a spouse argument, instead of listening, I'm just wanting to get my point across. But what we learned was when somebody comes in and they're really upset about something, they're just all hot and bothered, and this is the latest crisis or whatever has happened, and they just have to get it off their chest. Their number one advice was anytime that happens, whether their person is upset with you or about something else or whatever, is just, shut up
Close
and
your
listen.
mouth. Mhm.
Close your mouth and listen. Because 9 times out of 10, all they want to do is vent and get it off their chest. And they'll talk, 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 talk,
Mhm.
talk, talk, talk. And their emotions are going through all the stages that
Mhm.
it needs to go through. And then because you have listened and not interrupted and not advised and not counseled and not butt in, then they kind of catch on to that and they go, well, and I understand and I know that, and actually
Mhm.
probably, but, and they just talk themselves all the way right back to
Mhm.
where they need to be.
Yeah.
And then they walk out and they're like, thank you so much. That's exactly what I needed. And you're
Yeah.
like, you're welcome.
Mhm. Yeah.
But listening plays a huge part in conflict resolution, even
Mhm.
if the problem is with you. Somebody has a problem with you. If you'll just listen to them
Yeah.
and let them get that you hurt my feelings off of their chest,
Mhm.
a lot of times they'll come back around and say, now I understand you probably had something going on.
Mhm.
It's
There's a
it's a key part to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about counseling, premarital or marital counseling when you're doing that. Just having someone to kind of be not a referee necessarily, but someone to say, okay, time out. Did you hear what he just said?
Mhm.
And because he or she is answering back. And if you stop them and say, did you hear what he just said? And they're like, well, yeah, he just said blah, 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 blah. And then you can ask that person, is that what you said? Well, I might have said this, but this is what, but having someone to just kind of be a go-between is so helpful sometimes
Mhm.
for different reasons. I think for one reason, because if you're by yourselves, you tend to say things in a heated way or lose your temper or, just say things you shouldn't say that
Mhm.
you wouldn't in front of a counselor or just a friend who is acting as a mediator, maybe.
Mhm.
But it helps to have someone to just say, time out. Um,
Mhm.
are you listening or are you talking? And there's ways you can do that without sounding like, you're being rude. But just wait a minute. Why don't you just give them, it's not your turn yet. Why don't you give them 5 more minutes to try to get out what they need to say? And it's just very helpful. Maybe if people are self-disciplined enough to set their own timer or, police themselves and just take a deep breath, or for someone to say, can we just pray right now? And I think that
Mhm.
de-escalates things. But
Oh,
yeah.
you are so right, because probably a lot of times we only think we're listening. We're
Mhm.
not even aware that we're not listening. I'm trying to imagine Neil saying to me, you're not listening. And I would probably go, yes, I am.
Mhm.
Not even listening to the fact that he's telling me I'm not listening.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but we think we are, but we're not, because we're listening to it with a decided point of view or
Mhm.
perspective, and for somebody to step in and say, wait a second,
Yeah.
did you hear what they said? That's good.
Mhm. And there's some kind of, I won't be able to remember all the different listening styles, but one of them is like the information gatherer. And they're not listening to your heart. They're listening to what you're saying, and they're making a list in their mind of, this was wrong that he said, this is wrong that he said, he didn't get this. So they're just gathering information. They might look like they're listening, but they're just gathering ammunition, really.
To pad their argument, like
Yeah.
a lawyer defense lawyer.
Lawyer, attorney,
There
the
you go.
attorney. Yeah. But what we want to do is trying to remember what it's called, a certain kind of listening. And I should know that because that's what this whole episode is about. But listening for the purpose of understanding. You're wanting to understand. It's not to sabotage or to say, no, you're wrong about that. There's we want to listen in order to know more about that person, to understand their heart and understand their mind and try to get to the root of the issue. So good points. talking about some reasons to listen. And I loved this. I came across this on an article that I read. Someone said, if we see listening as a way to love others well, then we would be better listeners. And I had to read that a couple of times because it seems really simple.
Mhm.
But if we see listening as a way to love others well, then we're going to listen better. So it's not just listening. It's not just my ears involved hearing what you're saying, but I'm listening to you because I love you and because I care about what's in your heart, what's in your mind. Well, surface stuff, what you did this week. Sure, I'm interested in what you did, but what are you struggling with? What are you sad about? Why are you hurting? What happened this week that affected your heart? Those kind of things express my love because I care about you. And it's not just about hearing you speak words, it's about hearing your heart.
There's something that you do that I really appreciate when we're talking, usually, before we hit record. And we'll be catching up and, maybe sharing some things. And you always go, what else? And that every single time my heart smiles because I think it's your invitation, and if I'm in my head, I'm going, I'm rambling too much about me, or I've gone on too much about this, or every time you say, what else? It always sounds like that to me. I'm listening. I'm here. What do you want to share with me? Tell me more. What's going on? And it's just a simple little thing. And I haven't really thought much about it until just now, but I just noticed that that's something that you do. And it always makes me feel like you value what I have to say, or it makes me feel important to you when you say something that simple.
Well, good. Thanks for telling me that. I didn't realize that was important because I think if I said that to John, he'd think I was being smart aleck. What else?
What else?
Yeah. What do you want to say now? So see listening as a way to love others well and as a way that they can share their heart with you, and you'll be a better listener. Another reason to listen is because it's expressing humility. And, you think about Philippians 2 and how Jesus left everything behind.
That's good.
Put on the heart of a servant. It says that we should, with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than ourselves. So, so when we're tempted to share our own story, our own thoughts, our own opinions, whatever, as opposed to listening to someone else share what they have to say or how they feel. And I guess it's the opposite of what we were talking about earlier. It's the opposite of pride versus humility. But it's having a servant's heart like Jesus. And if our purpose is to be like him, then this is an area we can learn to be more like him.
And that's so good because you started out talking about pride being a barrier. And now you're saying that listening is one way that we can express humility.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah. And then one other is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just don't naturally have this, I think. And other people have it in spades. In some ways, I think there are some people who take everyone's feelings and they feel it with them and for them, and they almost to their own detriment. Although I recognize and I love that about those people. But if we can learn to have empathy for one another and share in their struggles as they're going through them and listen to them. And a couple of weeks ago at the lectureship, I told you we had that panel, the women's panel. And we had there was 7 women, I think, and they each had a specific thing that they were talking about. And Karen Watson was talking about, each of the topics was, how can the church help in this situation? And hers was, how can the church help with widows? And she's a fairly recent widow. And I can't remember exactly how she said it, but I've heard other people say this as well, that widows can tend to feel invisible. And you've been part of a couple forever, and now it's just you. And so where do what I think that they struggle knowing who they are anymore because they're not part of a couple, or they still feel like they are, but yet he's gone. Um, your couple of friends, do they still invite you? Do you feel awkward if you go along with them? Are you a third wheel? Um, you, I, I've heard some of them say that you feel like you're just another little old lady sitting on the bench. And this is one of the things that when Mike Vestal asked us to come down and talk to his preaching students about things pertaining to women. And I always tell the guys, pay attention to these women because there's so much wisdom that come from them. But anyway, Karen was just saying, listen, sometimes widows just need someone to listen to them and hear their struggles and hear their hearts, just sometimes just to laugh with them. And I thought, how easy would that be for us to do? And how do we not see that is a need that we need to fulfill? Just to listen to these women who don't have their sounding board at home anymore. They don't have a companion. They may live alone, and most of the time they do live alone. And who listens to them? And it just broke my heart when I heard her talking about it. And so that's an area where we can have empathy and feel and love on by listening to them. It's such an easy thing, I think, but we don't do it very often.
Yeah, I heard a friend of mine who's divorced share something very similar. She said not only did she lose her husband, but she lost her friends because they always did things as couples. And then as a divorced woman, those couples were no longer inviting her over or inviting her to go out to eat when everybody went out to eat after church. And it was just kind of an isolated place to be in.
Yeah. So widows are not the only ones that need our empathy, but that was just an example of how we can feel the feelings. Romans 12 talks about rejoicing with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. So that's something that we can do. So just the last part, some tips to be a better listener. And one of them is just to make time, but that can be a challenging thing.
Yeah. Because
especially
we're
we
selfish
don't want
with our
to.
time. That's right.
Exactly. Because we're selfish with our time and we can't make more hours in the day. I just said that to John this morning. I need more hours today. But I think we realize that we are giving something precious when we do give our time. And so if someone is the one listening to you, realize that they are giving you something precious and be appreciative of that. So I don't know exactly how to make time unless you just pray about it and say, this is something I need to do. I need a heart adjustment. I need a head adjustment. That sounded like something from the chiropractor. But just realize that we need to make some time for people. That's what we're here for. And we get so busy with our own stuff going on. And again, I think the devil works in busyness and distraction. So we make time.
Well, maybe it's a priorities thing too when it comes to our time and thinking about those conversations in the foyer where we're distracted. What are we distracted by? And in the moment, people always trump busyness or errands typically. And it's much more important to take that time to invest in the human being that God put right in front of your face than whatever might be going on in our mind typically that we're distracted by, even if they're all good things. Well,
like what you just said, God put right in front of your face. I think if we remind ourselves that this may be what I'm here for today, this may be why I am in this room with this person because they need me. And sometimes we're going to be the person that needs someone else, but just realize that this may be what God is calling you to do today and be willing to answer that call. And sometimes it's tough. Sometimes we don't want to, but we need to do it. And then ask great questions. And I know people that do this, and it's not as easy as it sounds because you have to listen to ask the appropriate questions.
Right.
So I think Jesus is one that did this. He responded with questions many times. Sometimes he was trying to get people to see how they were wrong, but there was a passage that came up when I was looking into this, Proverbs 25. 25. The purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. And I liked that.
Ooh, that's good.
So, you're talking about those people that don't want to talk about themselves. That's the deep water. But if we have understanding, if we have that interest and we have what we need to be a listener, we're going to draw them out. And I just thought that was kind of a neat challenge.
Well, it's getting past the lazy speech. You're letting somebody know right away that you're not really wanting to stop and have a conversation, and you just go, "Hey, how are you?" Because everybody says that. Good to see you.
Yeah.
But if you kind of sweep aside that lazy speech and come up with something a little more intentional, what did you do yesterday, or what'd you do this weekend, or it's just a little bit different enough to make them answer a question with something personal.
Yeah. And that's one of the good things about social media is you can find out things about people, and you can say, hey, I saw you had a garage sale yesterday. How'd it go? Or your granddaughter had surgery. Is she doing okay? Or, just those little things that you've seen on social media, and that helps you know what to say. And I think that helps people feel seen and heard when you bring those things out. Another, as far as that passage, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. You're drawing wisdom out, I think, when you're helping them process through their thoughts, especially people who are deep water. Sometimes I'm a little intimidated by deep water, but I think we can really learn a lot, and you're teaching yourself, you're learning things, and that's a great thing. Of course, there's another tip, the eye contact, the nonverbals. And, if I'm like this, just looking away in the distance while you're talking, it's so communicates so much, like we've already talked about. So put your phone down. I remember you one time, the very first weekend we came to Denver, and we went to that coffee shop, and it was snowing. And I remember thinking, you drive in snow? Of course you drive in snow. But we sat down and had coffee. You took your phone out, you turned it off. And I could see you were turning off, and you put it face down on the little coffee table in front of us. And I thought, made me feel pretty special, because you were turning your phone off for me. And people don't turn their phones off for a whole lot anymore. So I think we can do something as simple as turning your phone off and being conscious of what your face is saying.
Yeah. Oh.
Some of us have.
That's another episode.
Yeah. I'm sorry for what my face said when.
That's right.
When you made me mad.
People are some I know I'm one of them, but can be very expressive, saying one thing, and I'm totally giving off different cues with my expression.
Yeah. But sometimes it's about something else. So, we have to be careful not to just totally assume that they're not interested. But for the most part, I think most of the time when they're looking at you with complete boredom on their face, it's because they're not interested.
I'm going to backtrack on you a little bit, because the eye contact thing, I didn't realize this until the pandemic came along and everybody was wearing masks, but I apparently watch people's mouths when they're talking. And now that I'm aware of that, I catch myself, like, I'm looking at your mouth, but I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be looking at your eyes.
You have a hearing problem?
I don't think I do, but maybe I do, because when their mouth is covered, I feel like I'm going, huh? So I don't know if it's just a habit, or, I feel like I hear fine, but who knows? And then the putting down your phone thing, well, now it's our watch.
Yeah. Getting messages.
You don't even have to pull your phone out. You can just, while somebody's talking, look at your wrist and touch your wrist, and and it's just as distracting. It's just even though it lasts a nanosecond, it's just enough to make people know they're not giving you their undivided attention.
Right. Yeah. And either, they may be checking the time, or there's any number of reasons why, but there's some people that I feel so dismissed. I'm like, I just feel like they've dismissed me by that. And they're just very obvious, looking at that or pulling their phone out. And, it makes me not like that person. Honestly, it just makes me resent I don't want to talk to them because I feel like they don't care anything about me or what I have to say. So yeah, I know that as I look at my watch right now, because we probably are running out of time. What a couple more tips that I had. Check in later, kind of like we were talking about a minute ago. Check in, after you've had a conversation and they've poured their heart out to you. I think it means a lot if you encounter them again, reach out and squeeze their hand and say, "You doing okay?" And making the eye contact.
Yeah.
Not just that typical, "How you doing?" But, "Hey, are you doing okay? How has this week been better?" Or, just a little something that indicates that you've heard them and that that they were struggling. How was whatever it was that they were worried about. And then the last one that I wanted to bring up was to realize that when someone has given you their time and listened to you, realize how precious that is. I know we've kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but for people who really are busy and have taken time to listen to you, be sure and acknowledge that in some way and just thank them or give them your undivided attention at some point or ask them, "How are you doing? Are things okay?" I just think it's really important for us to be grateful for the listening that people do and not take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was one thing I was going to read, and I meant to do this a little bit earlier in the episode, but then I forgot about it. It's a quote from Barbara Walters, and it's something out of a little newspaper. How to Talk with Practically Anybody About Practically Anything is the name of the book. But she said there's a Hebrew proverb about wearing out grief. If you bottle it up, you'll never soften it. So when meeting a friend for the first time after there's been a death close to him, offer condolences. Keep it brief and simple. Then ask a question that will allow him to keep his composure. It can be related to the death, but not to his feeling of loss. Ask if most of the family were able to attend the funeral or if he plans to go away for a while. If you're alone and the death was recent, the person may want to talk of nothing else, may need to talk of nothing else. And then she quoted Shakespeare, "Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the o'erfraught heart and bids it break." And I think I pulled this out. And by the way, in my mom's things, I found two great big old index boxes full of these little treasures, quotes that she had used in the bulletin and spent years collecting these things. And she would put them on the back page of the
wow.
bulletin. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this made me think of asking questions and appropriate timing. This was a kind of a hint, like when someone has experienced a death, be smart in the things that you say and listen to. Make sure that you're not asking something that's going to bring them even more grief, but let them allow a little of that grief to spell out. Let them know that you're willing to listen. And I think that's just the main part of this podcast, is to be willing to let life get messy with someone, be willing to listen to them, hear not just their words that come out of their mouth, but hear the emotion and the struggle that's coming out of someone's heart. And sometimes it's not struggle, sometimes it's joy. People need to express the great things that have happened, and we all feel a little bit guilty about saying, "Guess what great thing happened to me?" But that's part of that rejoicing with someone who's rejoicing and not just weeping when they're weeping. So anyway, do you have any more comments about listening?
Well, I had a couple little tips.
Okay.
Really quickly. One of them was listen in the listen in the little moments so that you can set the stage for listening in the big moments. Because
it's good.
We're talking about maybe taking somebody off to a room or giving them your undivided attention when they're going through something, but they're not going to choose to talk to you anyway. If you haven't already shown yourself to be somebody who listens and, cares enough to listen even in the little things. And then the other one was, I thought about having a listening challenge. How many challenges do we set for ourselves that have to do with our speech and the things that we say? We do a no complaining. I'm going to go this whole week without complaining one time. I'm going to go through this whole week without criticizing my husband in any way. I'm going to go through this whole week without gossiping about anybody. Well, those are really eye-opening, and you don't realize how often you actually complain until you take a challenge.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it's probably the same thing with listening. If we extend a listening challenge of everybody that I come into contact with, I'm going to offer them my undivided attention, unhurried, undivided, engaged interest. And it'll probably be pretty hard because we're
Mhm.
going to be wanting to go, or if we're upset, I don't want to listen to you. I have things to say to you.
Yeah.
But it would probably be pretty eye opening for us to see the areas that we need to work on when it comes to how good of a listener we actually are.
Yeah. Right. Like challenge accepted.
Mhm.
Here's a question for you though, real quick. How do you communicate to somebody that you don't have time right now, but you can later? What's a good way of saying or expressing to someone? Because I have that happen sometimes. And if John's waiting on me or if mom, there's a lot of different instances where it really isn't a good time, but I really do want to hear what you have to say. How can you express that?
I would set a date for it
Yeah.
because if it's not a really good time, you can give them some gesture to let them know you care. If they're a hugger, give them a hug or pat
Mhm.
them on the arm, whatever kind of person they respond to. But and then say, I know this is weighing on you. Let's have coffee on Tuesday, or why don't we get together for lunch, or what are you doing after church tonight? Or
Mhm.
just you're not you're not overlooking them. You're just needing
Yeah.
to
Yeah, that's a good one.
shelve it for a little bit.
Okay. Good suggestion. That's always
Mhm.
been hard. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good conversation. It's definitely an area that I think I know I need to work on, and probably everyone needs to work on, but it helps to really kind of focus in on it and just think, what are some areas that I need to be aware of that might be a weakness, but some areas that I can, some tips and things that I can do better at. So thanks for your input. I enjoyed it.
Me too. Me
Do you have
too.
something good for me?
I do. I just learned about this. It's a Facebook page called Mommy Markdown. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
I was with a couple of friends of mine from church, Michelle Wheat and Ashley Waddell, and they were talking about one of them was wearing a sweatshirt, and they were all talking about where did you get it? And Ashley said, "Well, you're a member of Mommy Markdown, aren't you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so she ended up sending me an invitation to follow the page. And it's this, I don't really know all the ins and outs of it, but it's pretty remarkable. And so, for instance, the very next day, I guess she does it every day, where she shares links to anything from clothing for adults and children, housewares, electronics, travel thing. I mean, pretty much anything. She'll share links for and when something that has a sale, and then she usually has a code that you can use on top of it. So for instance, the first one that I saw was this really cute button down cropped jacket, almost like a soft sweatshirt kind of a jacket looking thing, button up. And she said that it was normally $60, but it had how Amazon, it was an Amazon link this time. They're not always Amazon links, but sometimes they are. You know how Amazon will say they'll have like a little coupon that you can click on when you order it. It had one of those. Plus, she had her code for an additional 25% off. And I thought, well, how does that work? So I just clicked on the link. I clicked on the coupon on Amazon, put it in my cart, and then there's a place on there that says vouchers, gift cards,
Mhm.
codes or whatever, which I never really paid attention to before. I clicked on that, inserted her code, and that $60 jacket ended up being $14.99
Wow.
on
So it's a
Amazon.
website?
It's a Facebook page called
Oh,
Mommy Markdown. Just go look at Mommy Markdown on Facebook if you're on there. Follow it, and then every day you'll see she usually says, great deals today, and then in the comments she lists them all, and then she'll share a link, she'll share a code. And it's amazing. And I'm thinking birthdays, Christmases, all kinds of stuff look really
great.
good.
I just,
One of today's was those travel chargers
mhm.
that she found on sale and had an extra code for. So it's pretty fun.
All right.
Yeah,
I just sent a request to join. I have to be kind and courteous though. That's going to be kind of hard.
well, do your best.
Okay, I will.
It'll be worth it.
Mine is a sweater that I got on Amazon. and am usually a little bit, I don't know, it's kind of hard to buy. It's something like that you've never tried on Amazon, but they make it so easy to return. And it's going to be hard to see because it's a black sweater, but it's a turtleneck. It's a bat wing. You heard of bat wing? And it has what I like this too. It has the split
Oh yeah, I
hem.
like those things.
Yeah. And it's stretchy and it's ribbed, and it has like the line, the ribbing goes this way across the top and it goes down across the bottom. So it's got different, it's kind of cool like design. And so the brand is Lillusory. It's just an Amazon brand. I'm sure it came from China. Lillusory. And it was like $18.99. And I loved it so much that I ordered a different color. And it comes like this. It's in a shrink wrapped package. And this one was even less. It was, it may not last very long. The quality may not be super, although this is the weight that I like in the Texas winter, because, it's not heavyweight, but it covers my arms, and it's a good length, it goes down probably top of the thigh. So it was just inexpensive, and they had like 20 different colors. So I liked it, and I thought, this is something good for you.
Good. It's perfect for the fall season.
Yeah. They
Very
had
nice.
fun like pumpkin colors and pink, hot pinks and greens and blues and stuff. So in my, I'm so wild and crazy, I got black and brown.
That sounds like me.
Neutral.
Neutrals all the way. That's right.
Yep. All right. Well, probably past time, but it's been a good conversation. Always enjoy our chats and value what you have to say. And you're a good listener. You always make eye contact and make me feel like you're hearing me. So I appreciate that.
So are you.
Thanks. So for those of you out there, come join our community on Facebook, on Instagram. Facebook tends to be a little more active because I'm supposed to be the one doing Instagram, and it's not easy to do it. If they would just make Instagram where I could do it on the computer and not just on my phone, that would be helpful to me. So any of you higher ups in Instagram listening, why don't you do that? So
I'll get right on it.
I'm sure they'll listen. They'll be listening to me. So until next time.
Keep looking up.
All right. I love you, and I will see you later.